Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. Come a long ways. I'm up to 149 in the series, but as I reorganized the series this year, I had some holes that I needed to fill. Because sometimes if I made two videos with the same author, I didn't know I was going to take it this far. And it would be book review 1 or book review 6, 7, 8. Later on, I decided to consolidate and make a series number out of the videos by the same author. That makes sense. So anyways, it did leave me some holes. And so this is another one of the fillers. I read this book back in 2010, 11, or 12. I just never got around to making a video because I had so many other books that were important. It's hard to choose which one to do it when. But this is important. Clouds of Secrecy. This will be series number 18. It was one of the holes I needed to fill to complete the series. The Army's Germ Warfare Test Over Populated Areas. Leonard A. Cole. Forward by Senator Alan Cranston. So anyways, Leonard Cole exhaustively researched book presents a convincing case that the U.S. government has used the American public as guinea pigs in its biological warfare test. The basic question is whether our rational national security, that's appropriate, rational national security, is more threatened by a Soviet biological weapons program or by our own. Paul Winkwork, Chief Negotiators, SALT II treaties, and much more. Leonard Cole, it says here on the index, these experiments prompt questions not only about the rational conduct of the biological warfare research program, but also about the relation of science to contemporary society. Is such testing, as one critic described it, science gone mad? So think about it. Biological weapons program, chemtrailing, HARP systems. Who controls the USA government? Some interesting conversation going out there in August 2017 with the anti-fascist movement, apparently up to no good. And apparently it's part of the progressive liberal side, Democrats. And then you got the white supremacist, KKK, or White Lives Matter, organized groups representing the Republican conservative Christian side. And I think they're both controlled by these guys. Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Fritz Springmeier has all the famous names we all know, like the Rothschilds and many others, names on your child's cereal. Chemical plant. DuPont. And apparently the Illuminati, the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and others appear to be Jewish, Zionist Jewish at that. They financed a lot of the growth in Israel They even have Rothschild's Boulevard. And it's mentioned in the Encyclopedia Judaica, which I've been going over these books quite extensively, and I will continue to do so. Got the whole set. Huge, heavy books. So if you can't believe the Encyclopedia Judaica, what can you believe? And if the names in the Encyclopedia Judaica are tied with these people and activities of World War I and World War II, French Revolution, Russian Revolution, other revolutions, and control the U.S. government, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said in a heated argument in his country, his Congress, "Don't worry about the USA. We control America, and the Americans know it." Anyways, the government organizations are using us as guinea pigs for weapons warfare, and apparently it's much more nefarious, sinister than that. Even recently I reported that in Washington or Oregon, they were driving around with the microwave transmitters on trucks, microwaving the people, testing it. And of course we already know we're being surveyed, monitored, spied on by a dozen different techniques. Our own TVs, cell phones, face recognition cameras. They got camera systems that can see right into your house. Electromagnetic lasers and other products that can induce you to have a heart attack and kill you. And probably much more we don't know. And of course I've been going over David Icke's material and his many books that I have. The book that will change the world, The Biggest Secret. And it mentions everything. Freemasons, Grand Orient, all that stuff is in this book, all in that one paragraph. You want to pause the computer. So I'm sure most people have been watching the David Icke material. And of course, PhD Jewish author in Canada, Henry Macau, he writes a book, Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. The reason I'm mentioning all this, the cult that hijacked the world, the biggest secret, the Illuminati, they are developing biological weapons, plagues, viruses, and other technologies. For what? Wait till I read from the book, just a little bit. And then, of course, they've done it before. They even took over the medical establishment with Murder by Injection, series number 15. I started this series in September 2013. So I'm celebrating about a 4-year mark in my making videos. But in this book, they clearly plan to take over the medical establishment and put fluoride in the water and much more by the Rockefellers, who are mentioned in here. And I'm sure here. And I'm sure here. And who else controls our reality, and what have they done? Series number 17, I made a video on this or two. Emerging viruses, AIDS, and Ebola. An in-depth study. Laboratories experimenting on people in LA, New York with AIDS, Africa, and so much more. Then another one I did, just showing you that we're under attack. Psychologically and physically, spiritually, economically, terrorism, socially, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, Series 7. So I'm also pointing out that this whole thing I've been doing evolved. I was reading books for almost 10 years before I started doing the videos, when I thought to myself, what good is it that I learn all this stuff? After I tried explaining to people, I realized it was a conversation you can't have. When you just meet somebody or friends or go over to their house, it just boggles the mind. Even this opening is a little mind-boggling. And what is the government doing when they're creating biological weapons, electromagnetic weapons, and nuclear bombs, and laser beams, and sonic weapons, and so much more? Even socially trying to get the Antifa, anti-fascist, democratic, progressive liberals from the Rainbow Coalition, transgenderism, pansexualism, homosexuality, destroying Christianity. On one side, marching, protesting, demonstrations, rioting, whatever. On the other side, they bring us the KKK, white supremacist groups, and White Lives Matter, and so many more. Marching, protesting, demonstrating, rioting also, and those two groups are clashing. So somebody's trying to bring about a revolution. I've done books by authors telling us who's behind these revolutions. Generally speaking, who's behind the Illuminati? Or is the Illuminati behind certain tribes of Jewish people? Or are certain tribes of Jewish people behind the Illuminati? The old adage, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? But they've been building underground facilities, and they have a secret government operating behind the scenes, non-elected. And it seems that the people we do elect are just puppets. And some clues I have, big clues, is one is the Protocols of Zion, which some people try to put in the comment section of my videos and let me know, oh, Rick, I went on this website or that website, and they said that they were fake. Well, I'm here to tell you now that I've gone over some books, and they were publishing the Protocols of Zion back in 1905 and before that, and a lot of intelligent, high-level Jewish people have even acknowledged that they believe they're real, and they match what's actually been happening in our world, and they match the Communist Manifesto, they match the Freemasonic some kind of document found on a courier. We'll be going over that. And horrible things they say they're going to do, and they've been doing it. I've been making videos on this. We'll be readdressing it. And again, one more clue. I made series number 67. The Protocols of Zion was series number 8. The Jewish Utopia. And this was this book called The Ultimate World Order was by Robert Williams, you can see it there, who was an intelligence officer working for the U.S. government. Then he retired. That's pretty high up. And he had a newsletter about security and other issues like that after he retired. And he was a writer. So he found this book in a Texas library called The Jewish Utopia. There's a picture of the book here, and he read it, and you couldn't just go check this book out. You had to be somebody special. And it talks about the Jewish Utopia. I guess the name is self-explanatory. Jewish Utopia. Here's the book. So you have an intelligence officer turned writer, I guess as an intelligence officer working for the U.S. government for a career, he would know what he's doing, you think? And he finds this book, and he's before my time, but apparently the end result of his investigation seems to be the same end result of my investigation. Going on my next year, after October, will be 14 years. So who is behind the white supremacist groups, the White Lives Matter? Who's behind the Black Lives Matter, the anti-fascists, making them clash? And even in the Anti-Defamation League website, I went on there this morning, you can go look it up, Anti-Defamation, ADF.org. Hate is a big topic. And I suggest that when people like me are exposing books like this and having conversations, as well as many other authors, this is, I'm up to series 149, and series 150 is going to be the bomb. The Cause of World Unrest, written 100 years ago by a famous author. The Cause of World Unrest. And yes, it matches all the other books. The Illuminati, Zionist Jewish people, communism. And apparently my research has exposed clearly that there are different tribes of Jewish people. The Shepherditic, Orthodox, God-believing Jewish people have had a huge headache also with the Akhenazis, Jews who turned, I should say, Khazars who converted to Judaism more than 1,000 years ago. Northern European people. So in the Encyclopedia Judaica, some of that's mentioned. In some of these other books, it's mentioned. And apparently the Jewish people, the ones that are desiring a new age, a new world order, a Jewish utopia, who control the banking systems, the Illuminati, who controls apparently the secret societies, the lodges, even the witchcraft organizations. That's a lot to say. But I've done a little bit of research. I've got over 500 hours of videos on YouTube, which, by the way, just in the last month, if I put in a certain series number of my videos, they have all been demonetized, and they said they're not advertiser friendly. And I'm wondering how that works out. If they're popular and people want to watch them, then wouldn't the advertisers want to be there? So I suspect that's just a deception, a lie. But it just happened a month ago. And if I put in a series number about UFOs, they won't be demonetized. So I've decided to generally just demonetize all my videos voluntarily. For number one, it's annoying to watch the commercials. Number two, I haven't been paid a cent by YouTube. So it didn't matter if I get 1,000 or 2,000 hits. I never got a nickel. So I think with the bringing these different groups, whether it's the White Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter or the March on Washington after President Donald Trump got elected, or the march on the wall at the Mexican border, or the March gay pride parades, or the KKK or white supremacists, all the people from the right or the left are being organized by these people. And also who represent and are the people preparing for the New Age, New World Order, the Jewish utopia, who have nuclear weapons and something called the Samson option. If we, the people of the world, try to stop them, they'll push that button and take the major cities of the world down in a flaming inferno. You can go get these books I showed you. I know Henry McCall, the author of this book, has a website with a lot of his essays. that he wrote. That book is just full of essays. You can see all the markers. Here's the title here. I just flipped it open, page 128. Illuminati bankers seek revolution by economic means. Economic means. See how easy all this connects? This is by a Jewish author with a PhD from Canada writing this book. So when I read from this book, which this video is all about, this is my opening, it should be concerning to anybody. When anybody looks up at the sky and sees the chemtrails, the chemicals being dumped in the sky, I call it sky spraying. And then when you see a sky sprayed line move across the sky, it blows apart, I call it a splotch. And then those splotches all merge together and they paint the blue sky pasty white, and all those chemicals come down to Earth. And apparently there can be biologicals, dried blood with bacteria and weaponized, little tiny particles, micro robots, things that can get in your system. Some people claim that it can cause Morgellons disease, where little beings or wiry, wormy things grow in your body and pop out through your skin, Morgellons disease. So I'd say this thing with the White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, all these demonstration, protest stuff in the news is to raise the consciousness of hate so that they can legislate the issue and say anybody saying anything about hate about anybody, it'll be a crime and you can be imprisoned. And they do want a new world order and a Jewish utopia, and they plan on destroying us even with economic means, as we just saw by this Jewish author. But anyways, they need to raise the consciousness or the issue of hate crimes, so we can expect to see more of that. And then they'll be able to arrest anybody like me exposing the issue of the Jewish utopia. So they're using one issue, things that go on in our society, the Christians or conservatives who may not be totally happy with the left, progressives, gay agenda and all that. And they want the two people to fight each other and bring about some kind of internal revolution or chaos and anarchy so that they can pass legislation banning any kind of hate speech, period. My 350 videos on YouTube, most of them, they would exclaim them to be hate crimes, trying to tell the truth and warn the people about this new age and new world order, which is clearly unfriendly to we the people. If you go look up my videos, these two, the Jewish Utopia, Series 67, and the Protocols of Zion, Series 8, and many of my other ones. And you can go on my website, rickmiracle.com, top left. It says a list of videos posted on YouTube. You can cut and paste and make yourself a cheat sheet. So you can kind of look at these different topics at your leisure, choose the stuff you're interested in, put little check marks, and organize yourself to get educated, and use my index to go watch other people's videos or many of the videos by the authors, famous authors, of most of my videos, if not all of them. So with that said, I'll start reading from the book and sharing my thoughts, and have series number, got so many books here. Excuse me, it's in my lap. Series number 18. I'll have that hole filled in my series. All right, on to the book. If you just watch that opening and you listen to what I'm going to read, I think anybody should be concerned. So anyways, there's this biological research center at Fort Detrick, which is near Washington, D.C., 50 miles. Fort Detrick near Frederick, Maryland. Since 1969, when the United States declared an end to its offensive biological warfare program, the American effort has been sharply limited, so they tell us. But these different weapons they've been using on us, and even Leonard Horowitz's books, AIDS and Ebola, I just showed you, and a lot of the material in those other books I just showed you. This New Age and New World Order planning is not non-existence. It's definitely well underway. The chemtrailing in the sky, the different electromagnetic systems, HARP, Gwen towers, hidden cell phone towers transmitting something, cell phone towers, cell phone, wireless systems, even the planned G network, 5G network, 6G, with frequencies that seem to be potentially seriously detrimental to we the people. Is it part of this New Age and New World Order? So page 33 in the book, I've highlighted some material. So let me read from the book and you decide, as usual with my videos. And I do book reviews because people used to tell me, Rick, I'm not sure what's going on. I know something's going on, but I just don't know what. And a lot of people can say a lot of things, do lectures, but when you go over as many books as I have, making videos for the last 4 years, reading books and researching magazines, watching videos, press releases, paying attention 24/7 since 2005, 13 years, you might get a small idea what's going on. And I believe I've got it. And interestingly enough, I suppose I could have never begun this research and just read the Bible and believed it, because it does seem to involve nefarious, interdimensional, other dimensional, invisible reality forces, demonic, fallen angels, archons, watchers, masters. I've been making videos on these topics, and I'll be continuing to do that. And if you're watching my videos, we'll see that stuff. So there's a thing I called history on this particular chapter, chapter 4. Fort Detrick's biological weapons history began with American concern that Germany and Japan might be developing biological weapons. In 1942, under presidential directive, Secretary of War Harold Stimson created the War Research Service, the WRS, to oversee the establishment of an American biological weapons program. The WRS was headed by George W. Merck, president of Merck Pharmaceuticals Company, and its function was kept secret. So we know Merck Pharmaceuticals are famous. You can see those trucks going up and down the interstate, those shipping containers saying Merck on them. So it's just another huge international corporation, which I probably should look into. I suspect I'll find some more information collaborating everything I probably already know with the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, DuPont, Russell family, and so many more mentioned in Fritz Springmeier's Bloodlines of the Illuminati. The wartime effort demonstrated the virtual unity of offensive and defensive research. The Army's official history of Fort Detrick, written in 1968, indicated that research and development in the offensive aspect of biological weapons proceeded hand in hand with defensive developments, for, in truth, the two are almost inseparable. And I am aware that World War I, World War II were brought about by the international banksters, the Illuminati, the communists, the Zionists, who are into different kinds of cults, a satanic religion with the Luciferian doctrine. They brought these wars about, one, to destroy the Ottoman Empire, which had control over the Middle East, and number two, to make a lot of money and create these big international corporations, and number three, to control countries, put them in debt, loaning them money for the wars, and all this to create the State of Israel, which is supposed to be the home base for the Zionist Jewish utopia, ruling from Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So these people are behind the stuff I'm reading about in this book, our own government creating biological weapons and testing them on us, and I'm sure testing them on peoples in other countries of these non-ending wars that we've all seen. It's just so sad how much death and destruction has been caused by these Illuminati, secret society, Jewish utopia people, not to be confused with the Orthodox, Shepherditic Jewish people who want no part of this and have been trying to expose it. And of course, how many Shepherditic Jewish people might have joined what they may perceive as the winning team, the Akhenates, Khazarians, Khazars, and how many Khazarians, DNA Jewish people, might have actually joined the opposition in trying to put a stop to this Jewish utopia, Zionism, State of Israel, and a new age and a new world order destroying Christianity. So you can't blame them all, but there is a conspiracy of groups of people. Of that, I have no doubt. And they are bringing us the White Lives Matter versus the Black Lives Matter in their continuing effort to divide and conquer us using the Hegelian dialectic cause-reaction. Just like 9/11 was a cause and we saw the reaction, which enabled them, these Illuminati, Zionist, communist, Kabbalistic, satanic, cultish people, secret societies, to destroy almost the entire Middle East. And if they do enact laws that make hate speech illegal, any kind of hate speech, people won't be able to say the truth that I just said. And I believe that's the plan. And a lot of people, I was watching some videos today, like Seth Rich and so many others. Seth Rich was one of the people leaking information about the Hillary political campaign that led to disclosures about spirit cooking, Pizzagate, child porn, child trafficking, and a lot of other seemingly satanic activities, child sacrifice. Anyways, those people, and it's been recorded on videos, you can go look up Seth Rich, he was assassinated. So exposing these things like Seth Rich did gets you assassinated. And it is becoming a problem. They are saying there is an awakening, but to me it's still a small portion of the world's people. And so this is another tactic to suppress the truth, is create these hate crime, chaos, and anarchy instances. And then the government steps in. And who's the government? That's the Illuminati, Jewish utopian, Zionist, communist, secret society, Luciferian occultists. You learn this if you go along and watch all my videos and other people's. Anyways, the book says here, the Army must wish this clause had never been printed, since the government's position now is that America is engaged only in defensive research. So they're saying here, offensive aspects of biological weapons proceeded hand in hand, page 33, with defensive developments, for, in truth, The two are almost inseparable. So they are dumping chemicals in our sky. They are testing weaponized electromagnetic weapons against us. They are using mind control, even drugs, all kinds of incidences with false flags, seemingly by mind controlled dupes. So do you think they're still into biological weapons? And when they're dumping those chemicals in our sky every day, have they already? And how easy would it be for them to put God knows what, Ebola, anthrax, whatever they want, today, tomorrow, targeting specific cities or whatever, blaming it on somebody else, whether it's Russia, China, North Korea, Venezuela, whoever. So we have apparently some kind of people running our world that are some kind of government controlled by Illuminati, Mafia, Secret Society, Jewish Utopia, Luciferian types. It's as simple as that. And they have to create hate speech laws and police us even further to try to stop the propagation of the information. I guess in a country controlled by these Illuminati secret society occultists, truth would be treason. Anyways, back to the book. In any case, the effort during the war was very broad, ranging from the development of effective microorganisms to the munitions that would deliver them. Questions were investigated about the mechanisms for transmitting disease, whether by way of respiratory tract, digestive tract, and even Dr. Mercola, he's a well-known person. There's a lot of videos on YouTube. A lot of people buy his materials, take his advice. He had an essay press release posted recently that more and more of the food production companies and beverage production companies, even beer and everything else, are being owned by these international corporations, which we saw the names in the bloodlines of the Illuminati. So these international banksters, Zionist, Jewish Utopia, Illuminati, witchcraft, occult, Luciferian, religious, demonic religion, are going to be controlling all of the food, all of the milk, all of the beer, all of the beverage, everything. How's that grab you? And they plan on depopulating the planet, and they want to make sure that they can control everybody. In the Bible, I guess it says we'll all have the mark of the beast. The people who resist and don't accept the mark of the beast, they'll probably be beheaded. And if you look up on YouTube, apparently the government in the United States has purchased 30,000 guillotines. How crazy is that? 2015, they had Jade Helm 15. Now here, after the eclipse in the next couple days, they're going to have some exercises all across the country about all the electricity going out. And my series 150, The Cause of World Unrest, a famous book, published I think in 1920s, will tell us what's going on. Another book I'm going to be doing is William Carr's book, Pawns in the Game. I got PDF form on these books, so I get notebooks and print down the pages and read from them. All right, so moving on here. Transmitting diseases, whether by way of respiratory tract, digestive system, open wounds, through methods of growing microorganisms and determining the ideal size of infectious particles. The difficulty in establishing a defense against biological weaponry was expressed in the Army's recognition that field masks for protection against gases were 1 million times less effective than would be necessary to filter out biological particles. So gas mask will not work with these particles. Can you just see what could happen? Alright, I skipped over some stuff here. I'm only reading my highlighted portions. Research at Dietrich, according to its promotional literature, provided civilian as well as military benefits. So they advertise some kinds of benevolent propaganda that they're doing things to help us. What do you think? I see the sky spraying in the sky, the chemicals dumped, and I read about the electromagnetic pollution intentional. It's being designed as a weaponized controlling mechanism against we the people. And I have to wonder about this stuff. But among the most ubiquitous of Dietrich's contribution to civilian life is the herbicide 2,4,5-T, which contains dioxin. We all know about genetically modified foods, GMOs, which, by the way, alters the cellular structure of food. So when you eat the food, your cells in your body, if you know how they work, they're keyed with special shaped keys that suck in protein, which are in the shape of the key. Anyways, GMOs are not shaped like the key of the protein that your cell wants to suck in electromagnetically. That's how it eats. And it sees it as an unrecognized entity in your bloodstream. It attacks it, as your cells do. There's a defensive mechanisms. You have red blood cells and white blood cells. And so anything that's an enemy, of course, gets attacked. And they cling to the side of it, all around it like a ball. And it continues to grow, and that's called a tumor. And that tumors cause cancer. And they tested this with rats. You can look up GMO foods and tumors, and you'll see. So GMO foods, they change the shape of the protein that comes out of the food when you eat it, and it goes through your stomach, your digestive tract, which separates the proteins from the rest of the waste. And the proteins go through your blood system, and they're supposed to be recognized as food, but they're not, because they're genetically modified. FYI. Not mentioned in promotional literature is the fact that dioxin is a nearly indestructible pollutant, lethal to a variety of animals and a threat to human health. No doubt, it was developed to enhance. I monitor with the radiation in the air every day. There it goes. So it's running right now about 18 counts per minute, but I've been watching it for the last couple weeks, and I'll glance over every now and then. It sits on my desk. It gets up to 30 and above every now and then, so I know clouds of radioactive material are going by where I live. And I even have monitors all over the country. There's websites you can see them, and you can see hot spots of radiation all over the country. We are living in a detrimental situation right now. And when will the New World Order, New Age people pull the trigger? And are they the ones responsible for the White Lives Matter versus the Black Lives Matter, trying to increase the hate incidences and bombings and shootings and demonstrations and riots and protests so they can make their move? Martial law. Hate speech laws will be enacted. Books like this will be banned. And I've got 1,000 of them. I counted about 1,000 books in my office here. Some more books I have in storage. This bookcase right here, you can't see it. I showed a picture in the last video. I added more books to the shelf. There's 100 UFO alien books there. Gray Aliens, Watchers, Archons. Books I've made videos on. There's 200 there. And my conspiracy research authors, famous people, there's 100 books there. Kabbalah, Zohar, Jewish Utopian books, there's 100 there. Atlantis. And behind me is all my psychic research and all that other stuff. So I've been full spectrum researching, believing that it's all connected, that these people into these satanic Luciferian cults, mysticism, Kabbalah, are in cahoots with the secret societies whose members have to put their hand on a Bible and swear under threat of death, having their throat cut, not to tell the rest of us what's going on. And they control our countries right now, our politicians, our presidents, big corporations, and they're controlling all our food, beverages, non-alcohol or alcohol, milk for the children, cereal for the children. And they want this new age and new world order, and nobody's going to get in the way. Even Israel has something called the Samson option. If you try to stop them, they're going to push the button and bring us a nuclear war worldwide. How do you like those apples? I don't like them. I make videos, and maybe if we all wake up, and I believe in the other reality, angels, God, and all that. They don't want you to pray. That's why one rabbi wrote the Volume 1, Volume 2 to eliminate the opaque. They don't want you to believe in God, and they've gone through a lot of work to defame, discredit Christianity and the Islamic people's religions and Jesus and so much more. They hate Jesus. They hate Christianity. Because they know if you pray and talk to God, God can intervene. That's the ultimate solution to the problem. We are spiritual beings, after all. Nobody gets off planet Earth alive. When you leave this place, you go into the spiritual realm. And I guess there's a couple places you could go. You could go down below or up above. And apparently there's a battle going on, a cosmic war between the evil ones and God's world. According to the Bible and prophets, and they talk about Nibiru, Planet X, Zachariah Stitchins, Anunnaki alien, Palladians with all kinds of channeled material. It's enough to boggle the mind. Once you get used to it, it makes sense. You have the evil forces from the invisible reality who want to control this reality and apparently hate humans, especially ones that are God's children, who believe in God and family values. This is the battle line. And they want to bring about divide and conquer. All right, no doubt it was developed to enhance the nation's security. Few could have foreseen that the latter, it would be found in waste dumps in other locations across the country. So these herbicides 2,4,5-T, which contains dioxin, these experiments the government were using, they got rid of huge amounts of this by dumping them in the waste landfills across the country and other places, waste dumps. They've been doing this, even dumping drums of radioactive uranium, depleted, the waste product, into drums. They hire subcontractors, and these subcontractors just drive out in the swamp or the woods someplace and bury them. They don't care. They're getting the immediate big bucks now, but as we all know, those steel drums will deteriorate. And apparently it's been happening so long, they have deteriorated. Up there on the Columbian River in Washington, I believe, that stuff is just spewing out. Quite a serious problem. And of course, we have Fukushima, radioactive waste all in the Pacific, quite a serious problem. So apparently there are forces planning on more destruction. And they test these weaponized radioactive, electromagnetic, and mind control programming on we the people. Large amounts have laid about for decades of this dioxin. It doesn't dilute or go away, and it gets into the water system. Totally destructive to we the people. Belatedly recognized by local residents or health officials, frequently no one knows where it came from. That's that dioxin from the Dietrich's contribution to civilian life is the herbicide. So this Dietrich base in Maryland, we have to thank for bringing us this herbicide as a pollutant dumped everywhere all over the country. Even in the Iraq war after 9/11, George Bush Jr. attacked Iraq. Why? I guess weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. But one of the things that did exist is the USA had manufactured the rocket shells made out of, get this, depleted uranium, which doesn't go away. When it goes over there, they fire it at the Iraqis and it blasts in the city or the town or the desert. It's uranium particles from those shells laid all about that will continue to kill for a long time. Thanks to our government doing that. What madness could possess these people to make depleted uranium shells? Or, as this book says, testing these biological weapons on we the people, putting it in subway systems, ships offshore with gigantic fans or prevailing winds blowing that way. They put it up in the air, and it blows over a city on the west coast, or a city on the east coast, or in the subway vents in major cities. In the post-war years, Fort Detrick shared research projects with the Public Health Service, the Department of Agriculture, and the Army Medical Corps. By the late 1960s, the base had become the largest employer in Frederick County. Its public relations office emphasized not only the number of jobs it provided in the community, but the benefits of its research to public welfare, health, and safety. Right. You believe in that? The official history, published in 1968, reveals little about the base's primary mission, work on biological warfare. Because the military security, the only hint about the open-air test over populated areas appeared in an oblique reference under the paragraph headed Experimental Airborne Infection. So this author of this book, I'm only reading a tidbit. There's so much information in this book. Clouds of Secrecy. Tells all. And I just wanted to show in my research and all these books I've read to try to figure out WTH, what the heck is going on in the world. And then I did that for almost 10 years before I started making videos. I prepared myself. I did a lot of research. In the 4 years since then making videos, I've learned as much as I learned in the almost 10 years of reading. It's kind of coming all together. And quite the bizarre story I got to tell you. This Jewish utopia, Illuminati, secret societies, Freemasons, high levels, all these other cults. They admit that their deity is Lucifer, fallen angels, archons, Palladians, in cahoots with gray aliens. What are we going to do? After mentioning that procedures had been developed to assess microbial aerosols, that's that stuff they're dumping from the jet planes we call chemtrails. Apparently for testing on people, putting metal particles in our blood, maybe even dried blood particles, different kinds of biological weapons, or genetic material to change our DNA, maybe. So a lot of websites and researchers are saying. And experimentally induced infections. It wasn't that long ago that numerous biological scientists were mysteriously disappearing, dying. Even astrophysicists mysteriously disappearing or dying. Even the Star Wars engineers and scientists mysteriously disappearing, dying. Banksters, there were a couple years ago, they were dying everywhere. Guess they know too much about the Illuminati, you think. And with Seth Rich and so many others, you can go watch the videos right now. There's a lot of people investigating the many people who have mysteriously died or disappeared, assassinated. Quite the problem. And they need to shut everything up because it's getting out. That's why you're seeing the increase, the uptick on the hate crime issue, whether it's the White Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter, women marches, the Mexican Wall March, gay pride parades. This stuff is just going to be stepped up to put the two sides opposed to each other in a more excited state, insane state. Ready to kill each other. The puppet masters are behind all this stuff. The Illuminati, secret societies, in my opinion, the Zionists, the Kabbalists, the witchcraft groups of people, Rosicrucians, and not all the lower level people, please, and not all Jewish people. A lot of the books that I've made videos on are by Jewish people who are aware of this stuff, intelligent people. And all this matches what's inside the Encyclopedia Judaica. I have the entire set here. I've got many hours, many 2-hour videos on anti-Semitism, Kabbalism, Illuminati, Jewish history, communism, Kabbalah. And I'll be looking at those things again. The encyclopedia set it's about this long. Lord, I could just focus the next 5 years of my life on these books. The whole encyclopedia set that supports all these things I'm saying. Manufactured, produced in Israel in 1973. I'm just saying, it's real. And even that video I showed, which I should show right now about the Israeli leader talking about what's going on in the Middle East right now and the world. See this video.
There are significant political changes on the map from day to day. First it was Tunisia, then Egypt, Libya, now Syria. What do all those changes mean for the Middle East? And all that's happening, is it positive for Israel?
Yes. I mean, there may be a transitional period that will create some difficulties, but in the long run, yes, look. It's not that those countries are changing. All countries are changing because the world has changed. And nobody has a choice, either to go with the modern age or to lag behind and really become poor and irrelevant. What's happening is, governments are no longer controlling their own economy. Instead of a national economy, you have a global economy. Now, if you want to enter, you have to follow the new rules of economy.
Exactly.
Well, what did you think of that little clip? So I thought I'd look up Mr. Simon Peres, I think a 3-time prime minister of Israel. It'll be interesting for me to read his information in the Encyclopedia Judaica. I do have a series about famous people that I'm doing from the Encyclopedia Judaica. I did Chaim Wiseman already, and that was very enlightening. So this guy says from that video And we all don't have a choice. And if we don't go along, we'll be poor and irrelevant. Who is he to say that to the world? Just makes you wonder who's in charge of the world, the banking systems, our politicians. So anyways, I did look up a short thing on the internet. Just put in his name, Simonperes. The last of Israel's founding leaders dies at 93 years old. The last surviving leader of Israel's founding generation, Simon Peres, was a three-time prime minister, the architect of the country's secretive nuclear program, and a winner of the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to make peace with the Palestinians. So here's a guy who's the architect of Israel's nuclear program, where they have something called the Samson option. If the world tries to stop them, they're pushing the button and taking all the major cities of the world down in a flaming inferno. And he gets the Nobel Peace Prize. Remember when President Obama was first elected? Shortly thereafter that, they gave him a Nobel Peace Prize. How insane is our world? So I'll be certainly looking this guy up and doing a video on him. Probably his lifelong efforts for the Zionist state of Israel, its creation, his involvement before World War I. And I wonder if there's any involvement with World War II and I. I got those two backwards. So anyways, that's what the Israeli leaders said. The world has changed, and we don't have a national economy anymore. We have a global economy. And these people control, apparently, the USA and our biological laboratories. Just something to ponder. Are we in trouble or what? Back to the book here. So, experimental airborne infection, page 35. And we all know they're dumping chemicals in the sky. And we don't know what they're dumping or what they could dump. After mentioning that procedures had been developed to assess microbial aerosols in experimental induced infections, oh my, the paragraph concludes with the cryptic comment that novel approaches are being applied to evaluate the role of airborne route of transmission in the naturally acquired respiratory diseases that play such an important role in both civilian and military public health. Not until a decade later would citizens learn that the novel approaches include secretly spraying the public with bacteria and chemicals. Well, since I became aware of chemtrails, sky spraying, in 2005, when I made a trip to Costa Rica to celebrate one of those big zero birthdays, flew back to Miami, and I saw so many lines in the sky. My thought was we were under nuclear attack. I'd never seen it before, but apparently it was always there. The mind is a funny thing. In 1969, when President Nixon announced the end of the United States offensive biological warfare programs, a large facility was already under construction at Detroit to house the medical research associated with biological warfare. So there's one tape recording of President Nixon having a heated discussion with some of his other politicians, and he exclaimed, "Can't we just nuke someone?" So they lied to us. They said there's an end of the United States offensive biological warfare program. And that's the mentality of that man. You can go look up his speech where he said that. Somebody had recorded his conversation. The sprawling structure was completed in 1971 and became the home of the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, the USAMRIID. It has become the principal location on the base for continued biological warfare research. Costing $18 million, the building sits on the edge of a complex of older facilities, some of which are still part of the biological warfare program, others having been converted to cancer research facilities. Well, considering everything I just said, can we believe what they tell us? The current biological warfare research, page 35 on the bottom. The base and its personnel, the brochure states, are presently as important to the national defense as the soldiers who man weapons at the world's outpost. This contention remains unamplified, as does the booklet's claim that Fort Detrick is the free world's leading microbiological containment research campus. Such statements, as will be shown, have done little to allay the concerns of skeptics. Well, you're looking at one skeptic right here, me. Reading this stuff is just a little scary. That's why I do book reviews. You can go find this book. I'm only reading a little bit. The 1983 brochure devotes 2 pages to discussion of the research being conducted at USAMRIID. It indicates that studies are underway involving some of the most virulent, pathogenic microorganisms which are threats to the U.S. military forces. The program includes a study of large array of viruses, bacteria, microtoxins, and marine toxins, a variety of diseases and agents that possess significant biological warfare potential are under investigation, including the Lassa fever virus, Ebola virus, various hemorrhagic, I guess can make you hemorrhage, fever viruses, botulism, anthrax viruses, toxins, T2 and other microtoxins, equine encephalomanias, Q fever, tularemia, yellow fever, Rift Valley fever. The list is imposing and the toxins and diseases formidable, yet the reader is assured there is no risk to the surrounding community. Meanwhile, 2017, and since my documenting it, 2005, they've been spraying chemicals on us quite heavily, almost every day. Just saying. Why? You think we're under attack? All right, skipping some stuff here, just doing my highlighted stuff, as you know. All right. Moreover, the Army's booklet offers no hint that extensive genetic engineering is now being carried out in the biological warfare laboratories. Well, a lot's changed since when this book was written. Remind myself of the date, 1988. In 1980, USAMRIID advertised, okay, so they say they're shutting this stuff down. Listen to this, page 36. Advertised for scientists to offer proposals on the introduction of human nervous system genes into bacteria through recombinant DNA methods. Doesn't sound like they've shut down the biological warfare programs to me. They're advertising for scientists. The Army sought and received special permission from the National Institute of Health to perform recombinant DNA experiments that involve cloning toxigenic genes into Escherichia coli, bacteria commonly found in the human intestine. Well, what do you think? Do we have anything to worry about? Again, that's why I do these book reviews. Who would believe me? Unless I was reading it from a page from an intelligent author. All right, back to the book. Fort Detrick's Believers, page 36. Norman Covert looks younger than 40 years that he admits to. He is an engaging spokesman for Fort Detrick and seems well suited to be head of its public affairs office. He has held the position since 1977, and one of his tasks is to convince people that secret work is no longer taking place at the base. Covert reviews for a visitor the kind of work the base is involved with as part of a defensive biological warfare program. He speaks with pride of the 450 scientists and supporting staff who are studying traditional biological agents. Wow, 450 scientists on the government payroll. And the government's the one that's spraying us every day with chemtrails, sky spraying, aluminum, barium, strontium. All the ones that have been used in the past. He insists that no new agents through recombinant DNA or other means are being developed. What do you think? You believe him? Considering what we know today? Protection against known agents like those that cause hemorrhagic diseases. You know what it's like to hemorrhage. Imagine hemorrhaging because your lungs are all bleeding and you die quickly. Diseases has been difficult enough to deal with, and many of them are still stymieing the group. Covert is not happy about the nation's present defensive capabilities. He asked rhetorically, so here's this guy's attitude. Is America ready if we were attacked using biological weapons? And the answer's, I don't think so. That seems to be the consensus because we don't know what it will be and how it will be delivered. Well, you would think if we had governments all over the world that weren't controlled by the Illuminati types, secret society, cults, Zionists, banksters, planning a new age and a new world order, maybe none of this would ever even be a threat. Can you imagine the billions and trillions being spent every year? You think they're going to use that stuff against us eventually? Have they been using it against Iraqis, Afghanistan, Syria, and the many other countries? What's planned for the future? Is it wise to ask that question? I think so. Why then, an outsider asks, limit investigation to traditional agents? Do not recombinant DNA techniques offer the possibility of creating new organisms that would be even harder to develop defenses against? Oh my, the people we have working in these laboratories and the governments that control them. I guess that's one way to fix the economy. Just to spread a good biological weapon all over the people so you don't have to feed them anymore. Look up the Georgia USA Guidestones. Seems that they do want a population of 500 million. So apparently, 6 billion have to die. They're obsessed with population. They do not have any love for we the people, the average everyday citizen. We're part of the problem, and they want to eliminate us so they can have their utopia. So it seems. All right, as the scientists tell me, recombinant DNA is an awful lot of trouble to go through to develop a biological weapon. We could do it in the basement with standard techniques and come up with an effective weapon. Around the time that Covert made this statement, Professor Susan Wright, a historian of science at the University of Michigan, and Robert Sinshimmer, a biophysicist and chancellor at the University of California at Santa Cruz, cited 14 recombinant DNA research projects being sponsored by the Department of Defense. So I guess we can say that the biological warfare programs are ongoing. While none appeared designed to produce biological weapons, the kinds and extent of the department's biological research, particularly the types contemplated as a response to the threat of enemy use of genetic manipulation techniques, may raise doubts that such work will and can be completed in accord with the spirit of the Biological Weapon Convention. Little more than a year later, an advertisement in Science magazine requested proposals for recombinant DNA studies involving extraterrotoxin bacteria. I know I'm not saying some of these scientific words correctly, but you get the point. For immunization and diagnostic studies, the sponsoring authority was at Fort Detrick. So much for them not doing this anymore. None of this means that the Army is violating treaty commitments. That's an interesting note there, I should mention. The United States has made treaties with other countries that they won't use these biological weapons for testing on other countries. So you know what they're doing, what they've decided to do? Because they have a treaty that they can't test the weapons on other countries. And you know they got to be using it in some of these wars. They're secretly testing it on us. The treaty doesn't say they can't test it on your own people. How's that? None of this means that the Army is violating treaty commitments. Yet Covert's dismissal of gene splicing as a technique to make weapons leaves one wondering why the Army uses the technique to develop protection against weapons. The inconsistency remains unanswered. You think? In discussion about vulnerability testing, Covert dismisses the possibility that the germs sprayed in populated areas caused harm. Well, excuse me, Mr. Covert, if you're still alive. I don't want you spraying any kind of biological diseases on my head or in my town or on my family or my friends or my neighbors. And don't be telling me that they won't cause any harm. The one that was implicated in infection and death during the spraying of San Francisco, Serratia marcinius, was a harmless bacteria, he says, and at this time we still believe there has been nothing to the contrary, nothing concrete. So I guess we could say they have plausible deniability. When asked about the Army's reserving the right to continue such tests, Covert responds, I would say that we want to retain that, and cites Fort Detrick's help in solving Legionnaire's disease mystery. This is interesting. An outbreak of an apparent unknown disease during an American Legion convention at a Philadelphia hotel in 1976, killed 29 people. Public health officials searched in vain for the cause. They called Fort Detrick. Covert says, because we have an extensive astrobiology capability, which means we can test the flow of organisms through the air. Our people agreed to help because it very well have been a biological warfare attack. So it does make you wonder when it is the American Foreign Legions, retired military people, having a convention, and something like that happens, would make me suspicious. I mean, if it was a convention of teachers or something, maybe less, but veterans, American Legionnaires? He said Fort Detrick staff showed that the unidentified organism was thriving in the water of the hotel's air conditioning system. So it could very well have been a mold spur, and then being sent right back into the hotel air ducts. Not until a year later was the organism identified. So like 911, will the powers that be ever admit the truth? The listener wonders how any of this helped in the context of biological warfare and developing defenses. Well, if I was that kind of warfare mindset, and that mold or whatever is bacteria was so strong to kill so many people so quick, bet they bottled that stuff up to use it as a biological weapon in the future. You think? They did go to Alaska twice to dig up dead frozen bodies from the Spanish flu because they had lost that virus. They had to get it back. Why? Killed a lot of people a long time ago. Covert is asked, could not the outbreak still have been produced by an enemy attack? It could have been. It could have been. It says it here twice. So I would say that they were smart in reserving the right to conduct such vulnerability tests. He trails his response with a pronouncement. Always leave that option open to us. So they want the option to be open to the military to test these biological weapons. They have treaties that they can't test it on the enemy, and so they do apparently test it on we the people. And blame it on whatever. Would resume testing be like the earlier tests in cities and subways? So they were testing in cities and USA subways. And would it be conducted again in secret? Covert answers indirectly, they would have to find an area. I don't believe they would do it in the New York subway system again. That's what it says here. They would have to find another area. But I don't think there is any question that we have vulnerabilities, he continues. It may be that they could duplicate a situation which does not put anyone in any potential peril, or anything that would raise questions about what they are doing. And again, after 911, which was seemingly an inside job by all the evidence and the books I have, videos I've watched, so it's a consensus against most logical thinking people that some Arabs in some caves with box cutters didn't do that. So it just makes you wonder what the potential for these powers that be that want a new age and a new world order, what could they do? What will they do? The Enemy Within. I think there's a book named that. The they Covert refers to are the scientists in the biological warfare program. He sees these people as talented and patriotic. But he implicitly suggests that ethical considerations are not their highest priorities. We have a lot of smart people here, and I'm very proud of them all. I have seen them at work, and I'm very impressed with what they do and their dedication. We've seen some of the movies on what could happen. They are dedicated to science, not politics. So they stay out of the other game. You know, let somebody else fight that game. So they don't get involved in politics. Let the commander of the Institute go down to Congress and testify about what's going on. They don't want any part of it. Just leave it to me, to my laboratory and my work, and I'll produce for you. And that's what they're doing. So the scientists are saying, just let us be scientists. Tell us what you want and we'll cook it up. That sounds like we should all rest assured that everything's going to be fine. Not. One of these scientists agreed to an interview on condition of anonymity. A civilian microbiologist. Anonymity. If you haven't noticed, they have a speech impediment on some words. He was at Fort Detrick in the early 1950s, later worked for the Army at other locations, and has been a senior administrator at Detrick since the 1970s. He recalls his excitement after working in the program before the United States renounced its larger effort. We were morally right, he says, to try to determine whether or not we could actually defend ourselves. He believes that biological weapons are unfairly cast as repugnant. Well, why should you demonize these biological weapons and call them repugnant? He wants to defend this stuff. I think it should be illegal in the Geneva Convention or whatever, United Nations, world law, whatever. Nobody should use things like this. But that's just me. Having seen all kinds of war and warfare, I would much rather be exposed to this type of warfare than to some of the things we have today. So he's saying that biological warfare is a little more humane. You're hemorrhaging up blood, gasping for breath, dying in minutes. I guess maybe that's better than depleted uranium shells being launched all over the area where everybody gets radiation poisoning and takes weeks to die. Or incendiary bombs that they're dropping over there in the Middle East, setting all the people afire, ablaze. Can you imagine? In this, he joins earlier enthusiasts who argued that biological weapons, unlike most others, could be used to debilitate and not kill, and would cause no material damage. I guess that's one benefit. You won't be destroying the buildings and the bridges and the water plants. You could just take out all the citizens. Then sell all those homes to some foreigners and make a lot of money. What a evil thought that would be. You think they've thought of that already? Well, I just took a break, went for my normal walk up one of the steep roads where I live, and they were dumping chemicals in the sky, completely painting it pasty white. How can that be good for us? See this little video I just took. August 25th, about 10 minutes to 2 p.m. on this Friday, 2017. Rick Miracle here in the mountains of North Carolina, doing my little exercise walk, taking a break from making the video Clouds of Secrecy by Leonard Cole, dumping chemicals and biologicals on we the people. And up here in the sky you can clearly see that's not a cloud, that's a cloud, that's a cloud, but the stuff in the background is all white, pasty chemicals dumped from planes here in the mountains of North Carolina. I think it's nefarious and sinister and detrimental to human health. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. So I thought I'd make a little video of it on this Friday to add to my book review video. What do you think? Are they spraying your town? Rick Miracle reporting unbelievable amounts of chemicals dumped in the sky. That's supposed to be a blue sky. That white stuff is not humidity or clouds. All right, back to the book. Let me read a little more and finish this video, making my point that in my research since 2005, I learned a lot. And I make these videos so people can take the shortcut. I found all the books, purchased the books, read them all on my 13th year. A few more months, I'll be on my 14th year. All right, page 39. When asked about the vulnerability test of the past, the scientists insist they have been fully justified. We weren't trying to put something over on the public. So they're spraying the public with viruses and bacteria, and they justify it. We weren't trying to put something over on the public. This was a scientific experiment. We didn't want any changes or modifications because we were doing this. In other words, if we told the public, maybe that would have closed off the public's coming and going. You talk about insane. I guess master's degrees, PhDs, with all these engineers, scientists, and biologists, medical degrees, that doesn't make them any more humane. It might make them into bigger monsters. Frankenstein comes to my mind. Now this would have changed the whole character of the experiment. So they don't want to inform the people when they're testing chemicals or biological weapons on you or me. Why would the scientists use the same justification for simulated secret biological attacks today? And he says, yes, that's right. So they admit it. They would do it again today, back when this book was written. The scientist couples his interest in preserving the character of the experiment with concerns that the Soviets not gain information. We've felt that the less we informed the public, the less the Russians would know. Well, maybe if the Russians knew, the Russians would try to stop the USA government, the British government, the European government, the Zionist secret society Illuminati thugs from poisoning we the people. He worries a great deal about the Soviet Union. We're dealing with a clever group over there. And a lot of us are aware the Cold War was all fabricated, spending billions of dollars on all kinds of detrimental black projects, apparently to be used against we the people. Look at what's going on in South America and Central America. Look at your map from 1940 to today and see how many countries have turned pink or red. That is spreading a lot faster than I am comfortable with. And this kind of revolutionary communist propaganda is going on today. They call it White Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter, and many other organizations, marches, protests, demonstrations, riots, all organized and performed for a public consumption. And eventually, there will be so much outrage with the public that the powers that be create, by the way, that the public will accept legislation making any kind of hate speech a crime. So that if you try to tell the truth about what the governmental powers, the secret powers, the Illuminati, Satanic, Luciferian, Zionist, Communist cults are doing, that would be hate speech. FYI, in my opinion. When asked about the ethics of spraying people, I call it chemical spraying, sky spraying, without their knowledge or consent, the scientist says he has thought about the issue many times. But I also look at it remembering that a lot of people were destroyed in the World War II before we woke up and did anything. Our job is to protect the country. And my research has shown me that World War I and World War II were instigated by the secret society Illuminati types for certain political aims and goals, one being getting the Palestinians land to create the state of Israel, to complete some kind of prophecy that apparently these people who think they're God's chosen people, that they should be the aristocrats of the world. And I'm not talking about all Jewish people. A lot of Jewish people have written books and made famous speeches like Benjamin Friedman and Rabbi Marvin Antelman and Henry McCall, PhD author in Canada, who wrote the book Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. So before people start leaving nasty comments on my website, which luckily I haven't had too many of them, there's some famous people out there that told us and are telling us now what's going on. Go look up Henry McCall in Canada, PhD Jewish author. He has lots of essays on his website you can read. Believe him. Look up Rabbi Marvin Antelman. Go watch my videos. I've got many videos on anti-Semitism, communism, the Kabbalah, Zionism, Jewish history, famous people. We all know what the Bible says. A lot of people know. Like Norman Covert, the Fort Detrick scientist administrator, maintains that the tests are harmless, that the bacterial agents were non-toxic. If you or I were in the area in which the testing was being performed, we would have been far more at risk by having some bus partner or commuter partner walking down the hallway with us and coughing and passing off tuberculosis. So they're saying their biological weapons are not really a threat to the public, that you might catch a virus or flu from somebody you know, tuberculosis, or you might get hit by a bus, whooping cough organisms, pneumonia. Do you believe that? Of course, it's a representative from the laboratory. During a stroll around the base, the scientist points wistfully at some of the low-flung wooden buildings, now used for cancer research or other non-offensive work. Can we really believe that? Why don't they tell us the truth about 911 and arrest the culprits, which are in books like Webster Tarpley's 911 Synthetic Terror and other books I've gone over. Jim Marr's books, Michael Rupert's Crossing the Rubicon. I've been making videos on these books lately, and many others in the past 4 years. 350 videos on YouTube, 500 hours, a couple hundred books. And there's thousands, maybe millions of videos and material websites on the internet of other people's work saying the same things. No wonder they want to get the White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, the left and the right to be fighting and rioting and demonstrating and protesting and having cars run into people. They have to escalate the hate to legislate the hate. Then they can claim anything is hate. They don't want the public to be aware of the truth. The truth will be hate. All right, until 1969, each had been devoted to investigating and developing a particular biological warfare agent. So these people have been working for almost 50 years. This is 2017, 1969. And these biological warfare agents, you don't think they just burn with desire to test them on somebody? When are they going to use them? Look at Jade Helm 15 in 2015. troops and equipment spread all over the United States, some kind of war game exercises, using computer programs to make decisions on who gets taken out, assassinated, murdered, killed, imprisoned, by the meta tags attached to each of us, collected by our cell phones, our computer usage, maybe our library cards, what we buy at the store with our debit cards, credit cards. They know everything. It's computerized. How do you feel about that? You're categorized in their computers. We've got biological warfare agents going on and developed in labs since 1969. Isn't that great? And then Ebola breaks out in Africa. You think it was a testing zone? And there were other incidences. Even in Iraq, they were firing depleted uranium shells. How insane is that? I guess that's one way to get rid of the uranium waste. Put it in these rocket heads and shoot them off in Iraq and elsewhere. Will they ever do that to we the people in the USA? Do these monsters controlling our world hate us that much? It seems likely. A nearby structure contained the laboratories for organisms that caused tularemia, another for Q fever, a third for the phonemic plague. I'm saying it wrong. Phonemic plague. Oh my goodness. The worst thing that Richard Nixon did was not his taping the conversations. Lying about Watergate, says Fort Detrick scientists. The worst thing he did was to close down some of the biological warfare laboratories. Well, I'd have to say that was probably one of the great things Nixon did if he shut down some of the biological warfare laboratories. But this scientist says it's the worst thing he did. What do you think? All right, neighborhood skeptics. Not many neighbors share the scientist's nostalgia, and several continue to express discomfort about the base today. Suspicions have prompted some to believe that Fort Detrick is more underground than above ground, and there aren't many people who are privy to exactly what is going on there. The next video I'm going to make is another video number to fill in one of the empty holes when I restructured all my videos. This will be series number 27. And it's going to be about limits to growth. They are worried, and they have been for 100 years, about population. And this is from another one of those secret societies, the Club of Rome, Project on the Predicament of Mankind. The Predicament of Mankind. So if this is their obsession, and I've got other material, and it's got charts in here, life expectancy, lifetime multiplier from pollution. So I guess if they add pollution, they can lower the lifetime expectancy. Let's just read a little bit here. The message of this book is urgent and sobering. The Earth's interlocking resources, the global system of nature in which we all live, probably cannot support present rates of economic and population growth much beyond the year of 2100. Not too far away. 2017, 83 years. If that long, even with advanced technology. So this is what the secret societies think, or what they do use for rationalization or justification for depopulating the planet. They publish books like this. And earlier in my research, I purchased this book years ago and read it. I just haven't gotten around to making a video yet because I've been busy making videos on other books. I've got about 1,000 books. You just have to draw the line somewhere and pick the ones you make videos on. In the summer of 1970, an international team of researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology began a study of the implications of continued worldwide growth. Do you think we're in trouble? The state of global equilibrium. So when I read this book and go over all these other books, and the New Age, and the New World Order, and the White Lives Matter, and the Black Lives Matter, and incitement of hate, legislation, and hate laws enacted, somebody wants to suppress the truth. And I've got the books. I read the books. You can get the books. Took me a while to put this puzzle together in my mind, because who wants to believe it? I don't want to believe it. But it is what it is. There are some creatures, I don't know if you call them reptilians, Palladians, Luciferians, Satanists, witchcraft organizations, secret societies, Illuminati, Zionists, Communists, all kinds of Masonic lodges, high-level Freemasons. It's all in these books that they're in cahoots to destroy mankind. And they're using the population issue as an excuse while they're spending billions and trillions of dollars gearing up to wipe out the people off the planet. That's a crazy thing to say. I agree. But if we use our minds and our eyes, it's apparently true. All right, back to the book. But biological warfare has been pretty much a dead issue in recent years. This is what this one person is saying in the Fort Detrick area. She thinks, let's see, perhaps someone could act as a catalyst and revive interest, she thinks, but that would not be easy. First, Frederick is a small conservative town in Maryland near Fort Detrick, and most people don't like to ruffle feathers. Then there is a philosophy among people in this town that you don't bite the hand that feeds you, and Detrick is such a large employer. So they're talking to some of the local residents, the author of this book, getting some thoughts on these topics. Back, when was this book published again? 1988. Almost 20 years ago. Many simply assume that the government is doing the correct thing. Well, from my observation since 1988, with 911 and so much more, spirit cooking, Pizzagate, 2008 crashing the stock market, and all the things I've learned and all these videos I've made. The government, in my opinion, is not doing the correct thing. The elites don't want to feed the people of the world. They probably would like their little ponds and lakes and hiking trails and beaches, just not overpopulated with people. A little privacy, maybe. Let's just kill off the population. Is that what they think? Do some of these people think that they're just better than the rest of us? God's chosen people, you think? Aristocrats of the world, you think? Elitists who are better than the rest of us, you think? Get you emotionally charged, especially when you go outside and you see they're blatantly dumping chemicals in our sky. All right, moving on here. Landers, who has been pastor of the Bush Creek Church of Bretham for 5 years, he is convinced, this is a pastor, because of conversations he has had with people who work there, that a vigorous biological welfare program is in progress at Detrick. So this is a local pastor talking to people in the area, people who go to his church. He mentions a scientist who told him about his current work at the base involving counterattack capabilities. Even if the research is for defensive purposes, Reverend Landis believes, the public is being duped by labeling Dietrich a cancer research center. So these people ought to know. This pastor in the area talks to the scientists who go to his church, citizens who probably have guilty consciences, and want to talk about it. You can go buy this book. He emphasizes that they are continuing to create the kinds of organisms or agents that they were doing in the 50s and 60s. Calling the base a cancer research center is a public relations cover-up to convince the public that the Army is doing humane and benevolent experimentation. Landis concludes that if people knew what was really going on at the base, there would be active public opposition. Oh my. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.